Hello and welcome to the Red Room. I'm Simon and today we're going to look at this classic iconic camera, the Hasselblad 500C. A masterpiece of industrial design. Obviously people recognise it, the name and obviously the actual camera itself from the moon landings. It was used by the Apollo missions to document the images shot on the moon. And the 500C was developed and brought out and put into production in 1957 and was then superseded by the 500CM, which came out in 1970. And there was an important evolution because the 500C, this particular camera, didn't have any interchangeable screens. And the screen on this is quite difficult to focus. Whereas the 500CM, you could manually change the screens to different types of screens, and it made a vast difference to the functionality of the camera. And this is a obviously interchangeable back camera, 6x6 on the 120 format, so you get 12 images per roll on a 120 roll. And interesting thing about this particular camera is that the backs also evolved. And this particular one is an original back which had an interesting system. So if you look on the other camera, on the ISO dial here, it opens up and you can see through to effectively the paper back of the film. So what we'll do now, we'll load a roll of film in here so you can see how this particular back loads. It's quite an interesting way of loading the film. So, and also you have a dark slide, so you can make sure you can take the back off without exposing the film. So, as I said, this is an older back. So what you do, if I go on the other camera, you flip up that lever there, you unlock it, and you pull the film cassette out of the camera. And you can see here the interior of the receiver cassette, and here is the film cassette itself with a hole here, as you can see, my finger running past it. So I have a roll of out-of-date Ilford HP5, so we can do a little test load. So you flip up the lever, put the film in there, and then you bring the leader here, and on this side there's a little gate. So effectively it's a paper gate, and when you rotate the lever here like that, it opens up the gate there. You can see it opening it up. So you need it open. You need to put the paper underneath that gate, and then you can load the film onto the take-up spool like so. So you just literally take that around there, put it through. So there it is there. Push it in, and then you wind the film on until you get that arrow there, and then through this window here you'll see you can see the back of the paper, and that's what comes in. That's what's important to know now when you put this cassette back into the receiver. You open up the back here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and show you. So you're going to wind this on here, and the frame window is there, but first of all you have to go through winding it on. So the first thing you'll see is a black arrow appear. There's a black line, then there's a black arrow, and then as you wind on, and on the later backs it had an actual winder rather than this sort of thing. So there's the arrow, And then you'll see a series of dots. And you'll see a small dot, a larger dot, a larger dot, a big dot, and then frame 1. And there's frame 1 in the window. So now you close the back, and what you do now to get the first frame up in the counter window here, you have to wind back on yourself. So if I can just do that so you can see the 1 appear. So if I do that, and then what we're going to do, we're going to go to there, and you'll see the 1, there it is, pop up in the viewfinder there. And that's the back loaded with film. And then you put the back on the back itself, lock it into place, and then you're ready to shoot with the Hasselblad. All ready to go. So that's the interesting loading of the film for the Hasselblad 500C and an older back. And what I thought we'd do today, we're going to take a trip to Pontypool, where there's a folly which in the guise of a tower, which overlooks the surrounding countrysides on top of a hill. It's a beautiful part of the world, not far. It's outside Pontypool in South Wales. It's not far from Abergavenny. And I thought we'd take a trip up there and take some photographs of the folly and see what the Hasselblad produces with the outstandingly good Zeiss glass, which is obviously really the heart of the camera. The glass is what makes this camera. So yeah, so without further ado, let's get on the bike and take a trip up to Pontypool. Today I travelled to Pontypool Folly. This is a folly, it's a tower on top of a hill just outside Pontypool, and you can see it from miles around. It's really high, and it's a folly which is quite imposing on the hill. And I thought today what we would do is take out the Hasselblad 500C. Now, when I was an assistant back in the 80s and early 90s, we shot on a Sinar 10.8, Sinar 5.4 for most food photography and studio room sets and that sort of stuff. And then we used the Hasselblad system for shooting pack shots primarily. That was that. And then we did have a Nikon system as well if we did anything 35mm sort of slides for presentations for clients. But the Hasselblad was the pack shot workhorse, and that's what we'd use day in, day out pretty well, alongside the Sinar for the proper work. The Hasselblad wasn't for the high-end stuff really. But I use these day in, day out, and it's a 12 exposure back and 6x6. I have to say, and this is not going to be a popular thing, I imagine to say, but I never liked Hasselblad. When you're an assistant and you're on a job, and you'd have colour neg, transparency, black and white neg. You'd have 3 backs, maybe 6 backs. We had 6 backs in the studio, and we'd be swapping them out all the time, and I'd be changing the film. We get 12 exposure, and the photographer's there shooting away. And I'd be there, and I will show you. I've shown you on the intro to this how to load one of these backs. And as I said on the intro, you always had to get the film under this little slot here, which is fine, but when you're on a rush, it's a bit of a ball ache. So yeah, and anyway, all the designers we ever shot for, they were always cropping the 6x6, and I'm thinking, well, what's the point? Because you're losing so much resolution. And I never understood why we didn't have a Mamiya RZ or a Bronica GS1. Now, when I left that studio and I went on my own, the first thing I bought a Bronica GS1. I also had a Bronica ETRS 645. But the Bronica GS1, you didn't have to crop. It's fantastic. It was there straight away. It was a rectangular image to start, and you were getting most probably 30% more resolution than that of the Hasselblad. So it's a whinge about the Hasselblad. But I thought what we'd do some shots on the Hasselblad. It's still an iconic design, and I understand that, and I get it. And this is a 500C, and they brought out the 500cm. And I'll try and show you afterwards on this, but the 500C had the most appalling focusing screen. And you had to go past focus, before focus, to try and see, well, where is that in focus? Is that sharp? So how fashion photographers ever dealt with a 500C, I'll never know. So yeah, that's the end of my whinge about the Hasselblad. But nevertheless, we'll have a look at the quality. Look at the, the Zeiss glass is great, and it is it's a great piece of kit. So I'm not whinging about the glass. It's just the slavery to owning a Hasselblad I've always found to be, come see, come saw. I suppose it's a bit like a Leica in a way. But I get it that the glass is good, but you're still cropping a 6x6 instead of not having to crop as much of a 6x7. So what we'll do, we're going for a walk now, and we'll shoot some stuff on the Hasselblad of the Pontypool Folly, and we'll take a look at the negs and look at the scans. I'm shooting HP5 400. Okay, let's go. I also have a 7.5 degree and 15 degree spot meter attachment for the Lunar Pro F. And what you do, you move the dome, white dome, to the right, and then you tuck that in there, and that fits on. And then what you get, you look through here like a waist level finder, so it works exactly like the Hasselblad. We have a waist level finder, you look away from it, and you compose your image in here, and you can take a 7.5 degree meter reading or a 15 degree meter reading. And it's very accurate. It works extremely well. So, yet another lovely day here in South Wales. I think you'll agree that the Folly was looking quite impressive, and the surrounding view from the top of that hill towards Abergavenny and towards Pontypool and the surrounding area was quite spectacular. Such fantastic weather we're having at the moment. And I think the Hasselblad performed very well. And as you can see from the slideshow, we got some varied images, and I've printed this one up, which I think came out quite nicely. And I think the star of the show really is the Zeiss glass. I think it's really is the reason you would buy a Hasselblad. And I just want to say thank you also to Dave Williams, who has lent me this. This is his workhorse, literally he's an industrial photographer, David Williams, and he's an industrial photographer, excellent industrial photographer. And he used it all the way through the 60s and 70s, 80s and 90s, and did some splendid work on it. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I look forward to doing another episode. We'll be looking at another camera. I think there's a few cameras I want to look at in the next few, as we have been doing. I think the cameras we've been looking at are all quite different and have different, like the Rolly was an interesting one to load as well, and this, as you could tell from this back, was an interesting film loading experience. So yes, we'll have a look at what we've got coming up with another camera. And in the meantime, I hope you stay well and look after yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. So take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.